Hello, my fellow readers. I, Dark Symphony 777 with FanFiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications. Leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. Saw something crawling. I wanted to kill it. Leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story and any of the future fan fictions you want me to read or review. And as always, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world. So, we're starting on this massive backlog that I'm having with the story called An Uncertain Future, written by T. Will. It is a Pokemon story. It is a Pokemon story that is adventure, romance, and genre. Rated M, and it stars Gardevoir. Because every single Gardevoir fanfiction has to be a romance story. Because for some reason, we can't think of anything other than, oh, let's have Gardevoir fall in love with a human and lots of babies and stuff like that. And this story is really weird. The story was actually recommended to me by Moonbird. I'm going to be reading her story next. And it's basically... So, let's get started on the plot. So, the plot actually starts off pretty well. It's basically a Curlia who's being abused and used as something of a what's the name I'm thinking of? A linchpin, sort of, for an illegal Pokemon ring. He bring him out, and this guy Wes only really grabbed her so that way he can get her to see into the future and manipulate everything behind the scenes. But he's abusing her. And she doesn't really know how it works. All she has is a Abra as a friend. And then the sadistic Absol kind of had to just stop giving a fuck when Curlia kind of lost the battle. And then Curlia kind of goes mad and destroys everything. After Absol kills her only friend, which is an Abra. And then we meet this new the main character named Rob, who is just starting on his Pokemon training. All he has is a Cyndaquil, and then he meets the Curlia, and he picks up the Curlia, and then we see his journey go from there. And the reason I don't continue on adding more of the stuff is this story is kind of a good example of the whole idea of throwing everything but the kitchen sink at a wall and seeing what sticks. There is so many unnecessary plot lines to the story. First off, okay, let's get to what I think should have been the whole focus of the story. Is after killing Wes, she basically what equates to PTSD, and I think that would have been a nice idea of the story. While her Cyndaquil and Rob are being hunted by the only two Pokemon that survived the whole thing, the Absol and a Zoroark, who are dark types who are immune to, who are immune to the psychic waves, which makes sense from a whole type standpoint. Darks were created to combat psychic type Pokemon, so it makes sense from a sort of that standpoint. And I think that would have been an okay plot, but then they added this weird pseudo dimension that happens when Gardevoir is asleep, and she's constantly being bothered by this ghost apparition sort of thing that takes the shape of Abra. It's not bad. I think that would have added a little more darker tone to the story, and the author does in fact pull it off, but then it goes off the rails after a little bit. Rob is just, getting Pokemon, becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. And then Team Rocket is shoehorned in because, we have to have a lot of villains, and then we find out Gardevoir is connected to Arceus some way. Every single character kind of flip-flops and, becomes erotic, everything. And then Gardevoir kind of becomes a god at the end, and then the end of the story kind of has her getting amnesia, which is completely unethical. It's why all these very unnecessary plot lines that don't really resolve themselves? I mean, there's even smaller plot lines that don't resolve themselves. For there's a couple. Let's see. There's in the story there was like a part where they kept mentioning all these wild valleys of poison Pokemon just randomly ganging up on people and attacking them for no reason. That plot line's not resolved. Hello? Collect call. I'll ignore that. I can't edit it out, which means I'm stuck doing that. I'll leave it silent. Sorry about that. So anyway, we have this plot line where all these Pokemon are just randomly ganging up on people and just attacking them just out of nowhere. That plot line's not resolved. There's a second plot point where in Goldenrod, there's people is investigating a possibility of a Pokemon smuggling ring, like what the Gardevoir was in. That's unresolved. There's a part where Bugsy, the second Pokemon, the Bug Gym leader, is kind of suspicious. Nothing's done with that. There's the whole thing with the RCS all this RCS stuff. That's not resolved. The only plot line that's resolved is the Team Rocket one. I mean, even the Gardevoir's main gimmick, overcoming who she is and trying to fix herself, that's unresolved with just a out of whack amnesia swerve. It's a swerve for the sake of a swerve, and I don't like that. This is a story. Also, this is a story where there is unnecessary romance. I don't like unnecessary romance. It detracts from the story. Not every story needs to have a romance, especially if you're going with a Pokemon and it's Gardevoir. Come on, you can't just keep. I know Gardevoir is kind of the wet dream of the Pokemon, the Pokephilia fan base, because we want to do the snoo with the Gardevoir, because why not? But there comes a point where you have to realize you can't throw in a romance on a whim and just saying, that make it work because reasons. The romance aspect is completely wooden. I mean, I don't know what's going on with what went on with the story, but a lot of the interactions were very wooden. There were times where it did feel genuine, but at the same time, there were a lot of parts that just felt out of place in what the story was trying to achieve with Gardevoir and Rob and all the other Pokemon, kind of slowly forming a family and trying to help her overcome her problems, and it just feels off. Just a romance story and what the story is trying to achieve. It just makes no sense. There's also a plot point where a Sandslash that Rob picked up, he dies. It's completely abrupt. I did not like that part because, okay, let's have a random Gyarados that's been corrupted by Team Rocket show up, ready a Hyper Beam. Lucario runs away. Gardevoir kind of protects Rob because she's fallen in love with him. Again, I don't like the romance aspect of it. Throws up a shield, and then Sandslash, it's just completely out of nowhere, and I didn't even realize Sandslash died until about a couple paragraphs later when Gardevoir is getting yelled at by the Typhlosion. And I'm like, wait, he died? And I actually went back and read the entire scene. It's like, he did die, and I'm not even saddened by his death. I'm not even angry over how it died. I just felt nothing. I mean, death is supposed to be used as a very impactful scene. It's just, it's kind of hard to get right. Granted, more often than times it is used right, but there are very, very few times, especially with anyone who's not really that good at understanding the concept of how death needs to be used. It comes off like this, completely lackluster, out of nowhere. It's boring. It just adds nothing. Not to mention the only character that kind of does the right thing is Typhlosion, and then he gets some Snooki from Lucario. Completely out of nowhere. It's like, why does there have to be a random implied sex scene just right after a character? It completely deadens the impact of his, whatever impact there was of the Sandslash. And finally, with this story in terms of the plot, there are 2 adult scenes, and except they're not on fanfiction, they're on adult fanfiction. I don't like that. I really, really, really do not like that. Mainly because, you know, if you're gonna write a story, you do it uncensored. I know where the author was coming at, because around 2012 fanfiction.net was still doing the whole censorship thing, in quotation marks, because nobody gave two shits about that. I'm sorry for cursing. I don't like the curse, but you know that's the only way I can get this point across is when they did the rule saying no sexual contact, no over the top gore, no over the top violence, none of that. None of the authors gave to most of the authors didn't give a dang. They just kept the sex scenes, they kept the gore scenes, they kept the violence scene. I mean, their torture stuff, war, you know, all that stuff, and they didn't care. But the fact that I had to go on another website to read 2 scenes that could easily be put back in, it didn't really accomplish one, because the adult scenes weren't. Well, the second adult scene wasn't really that good. The first one was actually pretty decently written, even though that one was more foreplay than anything else. But the point still stands. I don't like it when the authors try to censor the stories by locking them behind other websites, because, you know, there's a bunch of stuff that could happen, and stuff like that, and then the second half of the plot just completely switches gears, becomes a completely different story, and then just comes like, here's Team Rocket, like all the gym leaders are kind of conspiring with them. Sure, it was hinted with Bugsy, but Bugsy was more, you know, you could have done more things with Bugsy, mainly because it looked like he was more of a scientist who just, you know, wanted to investigate and was and stuff like that. And then it ends with an off-screen nuke, and then Gardevoir getting amnesia. I don't like the plot. The plot was horrible. A Soldier and his Gardevoir, the last Pokemon fanfiction I did a review of, that was done better. Why? Because it actually decently did the plot right. Characters. There are a total of 5 characters. There's Gardevoir, there is Rob, the Sandslash, the Typhlosion, and the Lucario. I actually like some of the characters, how they're written. Typhlosion and Sandslash, they're the weakest of the characters, because they're not really, they're more peripheral characters that just round up the numbers. Typhlosion is like, oh, he's this like big brother who's like, I wanna be, it's like, I like that, and he likes to joke. Sandslash is just basically just a, kind of like a brother figure to the Typhlosion who just likes to goof off. It's like, ha ha ha. Yes, and then we got an unnecessarily info dump over, hey, I had a girlfriend, she was picked up by another train. It's like, that really didn't add anything to the story. That was just unnecessary, trying to put weight on his dad, saying, oh, it was just unneeded. Lucario, the fact that she had a backstory, her backstory was like a mystery, and seeing her kind of warm up to Rob over the course of the story, reluctantly, was at least done decently. I have no problem with that. Rob, I liked Rob's character. I despised mainly because the writing was so schizophrenic with him. It's like the author didn't know what to do with his character. Like in one scene, and like half the scenes he acted in, it was just completely the wrong thing to really portray. When Sandslash dies, he just feels dead, and we don't really get anything out of him because it's more focused on Gardevoir and her justification for letting Sandslash die, which I think was completely stupid. There should have been like a couple scenes of each of them going through their introspections on their thoughts of the matter. I think that would have carried more weight. There are scenes where, he just completely deadens himself. That's like really no need. It's just his character is like really, really weird. And then we have Gardevoir. I think Gardevoir, in contrast to Rob, is the best written character because we have this whole we have her trying to overcome this PTSD and everything. And I thought, okay, it's a decent character for a Pokemon. And her, warming up to humans again and trying to learn how humans behave and stuff like that because, she loves this guy and, she wants to. And then we get, like, random tsundere Gardevoir, which completely out of nowhere. It's like there's no point for there to be a random tsundere moment. And then, like, in the second half, her character becomes schizophrenic. It's just really weird. I like Gardevoir's character. She is the best written, but even then, that's still saying something because of how erratic the story becomes in the second half. The story should have just stayed, Gardevoir meets human. Not Gardevoir. Kirlia meets human. Kirlia tries to become friends with humans. The human tries to make Kirlia trust humans again. They're hunted by the last two remaining Pokemon of her previous owners. That story wrote itself, and then the author needlessly complicated it by all these plot holes. But, yes, I mean plot holes. All these ridiculous plot lines that never go anywhere. All this ridiculous character interactions that don't do anything. All these needless moments, and such a piss-poor ending. Seriously, why did the story have to end on an amnesia swerve? Because there was no need for the amnesia. If you wanted to end it right, you could have had Gardevoir sacrifice herself. Have her die. Have her, or like, disappear. Like, that would have made more sense. And everything. Pacing. I think the pacing was at least decent. I have nothing wrong with it. It again, just like the plot and the characters, it gets schizophrenic in the second half. There is a big over-reliance on sleeping as a time indicator. There is no need to do that. There is unnecessary jump cuts to other scenes that needed to be finished before jumping to them. But overall, the pacing was at least decent enough that I can't really fault it. This story ultimately feels like it's just someone's first story. I mean, that's what it reads like. And the worst part, I'll get to that at the end. The pacing, with it's completely over-reliant on characters sleeping, mostly the Gardevoir. I can get the Gardevoir sleeping because it transitions to the sleep, where, like, she's stuck in the house and the dead Abra, quotation marks, is, trying to mess with her and trying to corrupt her. Okay, fine. That makes sense, but just so many sleep scenes, it's just completely unnecessary. And again, in the second half, the pacing just goes completely off the rails. It just becomes way too fast when the story actually, in the second half, if you wanted to make it better, you had to actually slow it down. You did the complete opposite of what it needed to do. You went slow, you went fast when it needed to be slow, and you went fast when you needed to be slow. I just realized I repeated that. Ignore that. So, favorite part, and would I recommend it? Would I recommend it? An emphatic no. And this is what I don't understand. I actually decided on a whim because when I finished the story, I noticed the story, at this point of recording, An Uncertain Future has 231 reviews. And some of them was like, oh, this is by some, I'm not even gonna name names. This is literally the best fan fiction I ever read. What an infuriating way to end it. I sincerely hope you write the epilogue. I never thought I'd be craving myself. I never thought I would find myself craving one chapter or another. The story was beautiful and brought me to tears. Um, Here's like an actual criticism. Jay and I have been enjoying the story for a while, and while I enjoy the romance of the story, I wish the ending had been better, or at the very least, the epilogue had been made. But since it's been nearly 4 years, I doubt it'll happen. Such a beautiful story. Thank you for this. And here's another actual criticism. See, with Absol, I think you fall into the insidious trap inherent in writing insane characters, namely that being crazy too often completely defines the character, making them one-dimensional and frankly kind of boring. In this instance, it's forgettable since I see Absol less as a character and more as a movie monster. But there's some to it, which I agree with. I think I'll get more into that at the end, where I describe how I would make the story. So, as it is, I would not recommend the story. I'm sorry, it's not the worst story I've ever written. I mean, I ever read. There are worse stories I have read, and this is not even the worst ending I have. I mean, among the worst endings I've ever read, Angsteth is one of them, and I'm actually planning on reviewing Angsteth. I cannot wait to completely tear apart that ending. I think it's the worst. Honestly, off topic, Angsteth is the worst ending to a fanfiction I've ever read. I'm sorry, that ending was so bad. It completely caused me to be disappointed in it. But back on topic, I can't in my right mind recommend a story that is way too erratic in how it presented its plot, how it presented its characters, how it paced itself, and just a ridiculously lackluster ending to it. Completely just, no. Any hope I had for the story kind of went away the moment Absol was killed. Favorite part? I guess the foreplay scene on adult fanfiction. I mean, it's the only scene that I even remotely liked, because the rest of the story was just more meh and completely just there. I didn't have any feelings one way. But at least in terms of writing, the foreplay scene was at least done well, and it's better. It's better than just saying I don't have a favorite part. I mean, it's either that or just say, or you'd rather hear me say I have no favorite part for the story. Yeah, get out. What I would do to change this? This is the final parts now. Honestly, there is a lot you would have to do. First off, you get rid of that romance. I'm sorry, this story does not need romance. How it's going to be presented, and you needed it to be an adventure drama. Keep it like that. Second, make Zoroark and Absol the main antagonist. Get rid of Team Rocket. Get rid of this whole connection with Gardevoir and Arceus. Just get rid of all that. If you want them to be the main antagonist, do a sequel for that. That's fine. But this story needed to fix Gardevoir. The whole point of the story, the whole point of the first half of the story was trying to make Gardevoir trust humanity again, humans again, and learn more about human culture and stuff like that in a way to getting her to trust them more. You needed to focus on that. And Absol and Zoroark chasing them all throughout Johto would have made a nice story. As well as her combating her mental destruction, her mental split, with like her kind being the Gardevoir and her evil dark side representing Abra and constantly trying to corrupt her and corrode her. Fine, add that as a plot point, but you should have finished the plot point instead of saying, oh, Gardevoir siding with the Abra at the end. It would just which is another part I didn't really like, because it just that just completely ruined her character for me. Let's say, oh, I'll work with you. Because then we got Yandere Gardevoir, which I don't like. There's a story called the Yandere Gardevoir, but that one at least works because the Gardevoir was at least openly Yandere from the very beginning. And, you know, we had all those shenanigans. Have Bubsy kind of, you know, be suspicious. Have some of the gym leaders be suspicious. And everything. There's just so much that has to be accomplished fixing the story. Change the genre. Completely get rid of the second half of the story. Replace it with them constantly still going and finding and get a more camaraderie with the other characters. Have the other characters examine the situation. Multiple viewpoints of the same situation leads to at least more developed characters. That way, if Sandslash does die, it'll at least be more impactful because we have a better handling of his character, his motivations, of, you know, everything, and we can possibly get to like him more. Lucario's motivations, the Typhlosion's character. I mean, his character was lackluster. Have Rob be a better trainer. Have him be moody. But, you know, completely just don't make his character so erratic that it just makes no sense half the time. And overall, this story is unpolished. But I think it could be saved if given the time and attention to kind of split it into two stories. And just make sure the whole amnesia thing does not happen. I'm sorry, that's just too stupid. But overall, I don't like the story. I think it's it tries way too much to lean on yandere tropes. And overall, I think it's not really that good. I'm sorry, it's just not. So this has been Dark Symphony 777, and